of the recording, but I've started recording.
Okay.
So, hello and thank you for joining our channel. I'm Robert. This is my dad,
And I'm
David.
David.
I moved away from home, and so essentially what we used to do is every weekend we would talk about Formula One and stuff is going on, rumor mill stuff, and we would talk about it. But now that we're away, how can we keep that going? Boom, YouTube channel, here you are. And that's what we're doing. We're going to just chat for maybe an hour, hour and a half about stuff every week. And that's the plan.
Yeah, and we're going to start with talking about a brief rundown of last season, starting with Red Bull and finishing with Haas.
Yep, we're just going to...
And maybe mention some of the drivers down the line as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all 10 teams, stuff we've heard, and then just, conversational stuff. So thank you for watching, and then let's get started. Dad, Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull. Well, there's not much you can say about the RB19. But although I do not think the car was as phenomenal as everyone makes out, I think Max added the special because Perez was not that good in the car. I mean, Perez isn't a bad driver. So I think Max pulled extra performance out of the car. Maybe because it suited him, but he just has that special drive.
Well, it's no rumor or rare concept that Red Bull is fully behind Max Verstappen. That's their number one guy. He gets to develop the car how he wants it because we've seen it now. He is the guy that can pull the most out of any car given to him. Perez, although getting second place, everyone just kind of downplays it as it was mostly the car. So Red Bull's car, RB19, was darn near perfect. But, Adrian Newey said they've maximized that development. So we're now at the point where their off-season antics are happening, and they were bragging about it last year that they're already developing the 2024 car, and now in the offseason they're bragging about developing the 2025 car. So Red Bull development, they're going to a new concept, and if there's anything to Adrian Newey, we know they're going to get faster.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say, Adrian might come up with a basic concept, but he has hundreds of engineers who do all the nice fine-tuning. And we should never forget those people as well.
That's true, yeah. Red Bull's put a really good team together. I think it was last year during the offseason. They poached a bunch of people from Mercedes. That always happens. A little riff-raff in the teams. But yeah, no, the Red Bull's put a really good team together for Formula One. And right now it just seems indestructible.
I think what people forget, though, is they poached engine people, mainly.
Yeah. Well, and that's because they're going to go away from the Honda engine, going to Ford, so they need all the experience and expertise.
And I bet you they poached Honda engine people because the engine's still being made by Red Bull this time.
Yeah,
it's just getting a Ford name on it and stamp, and Ford is providing all the battery technology.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That starts in 2026 for them.
Yeah, that's 2026.
So we're years away from Ford being part of it, but they announced that last year. The Aero people are very confident in their stuff, and Max at the top of his game. Biggest talking point for Red Bull is who's going to get that second seat after next year? Perez's contract will expire after next year. Obviously, the team's going, we're with Checo because they don't want to demoralize their driver, but the rumors are always, is Checo getting replaced by Ricciardo?
Yeah, I actually think that would be a retrograde step putting Ricciardo in, personally. I'd like to see Nigel Lawson given a chance in the AlphaTauri.
That's not his name. Liam Lawson.
No, Liam, I'm reading wrong. It's old age.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson putting his into AlphaTauri, or the Racing Bulls as they're going to be called, and Yuki going up to Red Bull.
Yeah, so and then here is me. What I'm hearing is Yuki's going to move where Honda goes, which is Aston Martin. So essentially what we know at this point now, Red Bull has a second seat to fill either keeping Perez because he's a good teammate, he's essentially the Bottas for Max, or finding a new kid. Some rumors obviously are Lando Norris going there eventually, but does he really want to play second fiddle to Max? It's going to be interesting when it happens. Right now, we have no idea.
No, and it's all rumors and people's speculation. So
Yeah, if Perez has a great year, he's there, and essentially he knows that. He last year had the confidence to say, "I'm going for P1. I want to beat Max," and maybe that's like setting your goal too high, like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna live on the moon in 2 years." It's like,
but
let's build the rocket first.
coming back to Nigel Lawson, at least it would
Liam,
help.
Liam
Help
Lawson. You keep on
Nigel.
giving him.
This time I'm correct.
Oh,
Nigel Lawson used to be the Chancellor, so at least
okay.
he can look after Red Bull's finances.
All right, there you go. I was like, why do you keep on giving him a 20s name? We haven't had a Nigel. That's funny.
Mansell.
Yeah. But he looked like he was old back then. But okay, that's Red Bull. We can talk about the wind tunnel drama a little bit.
Yeah, and well, there's two things. One, Red Bull has still got an old wind tunnel. They're trying to get approval for building a new one because the problem they have, it really is an old RAF wind tunnel, and it takes time to get the temperatures right. So that the time they're allowed in the wind tunnel is reduced by the old design of wind tunnel.
I see. Yeah, and being in first place, they get the least amount of time. The rumors are swirling around that because AlphaTauri is moving, and we can probably talk about this a bit later, but essentially, are Red Bull going to cheat because AlphaTauri is now also based in England? Or
I've heard they give them a
move to
separate
England?
door to get in.
That might be another team.
Just
So
like Mercedes.
talking about separate teams and Mercedes, let's talk about Mercedes.
Yeah, I hope they do better this year. Come up with a better design.
More competitive,
again,
yeah.
Because they were second in the championship, they've only got 75% of wind tunnel and CFD time compared to other teams. So they're only a little bit better off than Red Bull. How can they have design and keep updated on a completely new design? That's going to be a difficult task for this year.
Yeah, and well, they're bragging about. Or first of all, let's talk about Toto Wolff. He got extended. I think it's till 2026.
Yeah, but when you own the company, a third of the company, it's very easy to get your contract extended.
Well, but okay, you could also say he could retire whenever he feels like. So
yeah.
Toto being one of these managers that, first of all, girls love him because he's not hard to look at. But he's one of those managers that does a good job, has a lot of respect, keeps it interesting, and essentially is Christian Horner's thorn in his side, and Christian Horner's the thorn in his. It's fun. It's a fun dynamic. It's going to be good to see him around for a few years. But what he promises is they're 2.5 seconds faster in a sim.
And that was based on the Melbourne circuit.
Yeah. So,
which is a high-speed circuit.
Yep. 2.5 seconds is a lot of time in Formula One. That's like years in Formula One. Saying that they're 2.5 seconds faster is exciting, but that's off their new concept. So is it faster? Is their new concept faster in a sim? Cool, sure. But reality, do we know if it's faster in reality? Not really.
And they've been saying ever since this new formula started in 2022, before every race, we've now hit it. We now know what was wrong. Well, up until the last race of last year, they still didn't seem to know what was wrong with their design.
Yeah, no, their problem really was an inconsistency for the drivers. They would have a race where the car feels great, and then the next race, it's just all over the place. So, and I've heard things about that for Ferrari too, where the car was undrivable. Obviously not, because they're scoring good points. But they need consistency like they had in 2021 and the years prior. For Mercedes is excited about their new concept. They are going away from their old concept. So hopefully we can go back to Mercedes being competitive again against the number
Yeah,
one team.
I would love to see 3 or 4 cars fighting up front for wins and racing each other rather than one car just moving off into the distance.
Yeah.
Being old, I remember racing from the 60s and 70s where cars would be swapping first place all over the place.
Yeah, and
You had
that was the era
area,
where it was drivers that really made the difference.
yeah,
You know, you
you
go back
know,
to Jim Clark and what he was able to do with worse cars theoretically, but then he would always still win. And
well,
so we're
there
now
was
in the car era versus the driver era, although we see people like Max Verstappen really maximizing, Lewis Hamilton maximizing. Yeah.
well, you take Jim Clark, he raced for Lotus mainly,
Yep.
but Lotus used a BRM engine. But BRM only gave them the carbureted version, which was lower on power than their own car, which was fuel injected, had more power, and Lotus still won with Jim Clark,
Yeah.
only with Jim Clark.
Yeah.
So those days, the drivers did add more to the car. Today, to be honest, you've got drivers like Max, Lewis, Alonso. They add to the car, but the cars, if you don't have a car that's top notch aerodynamically, um, with natural grip, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. Gone are the days where it's just a fast piece of metal with wheels
Yeah,
on it.
and a
And like
death box.
even the Senna era was a lot of driver um,
Yeah,
input makes the difference. And you know, McLaren was really good because they had really good drivers. Um, Williams is really good because they had good drivers. Ferrari had Michael Schumacher for years. We all heard that song so many times played. So Formula One, it's fun how it's a bit of both. But then the best way to see who's the better driver is by teammates. I think back in the day it was like whoever's in the front. Now it's very much so. Are you faster than your teammate? Are you
yeah.
maximizing your car?
It always has been. The first person you beat is your teammate.
Yeah. Well, now
But
now more so than ever, I would say.
but I think this year Mercedes might have a problem with their team drivers.
Yeah, George Russell thinks he's the faster driver, better driver,
And
and then
and
and that was going off of the year where he had more points than Lewis during their no side pod experiment, and then Lewis last year really
really beat him.
really beat him pretty much everywhere, and so George being the young guy wanting all those championships that
But
Lewis has, and
come to
Lewis
the end
wanting
of
his
the
last one.
coming to the end of the season, George pulled it back somewhat as well.
Yep. Yeah.
He had a bad period at the beginning and the start, but also again they changed the design, the setup of the car to suit Lewis more halfway through of the beginning of the 23 season. They actually openly stated that. So
Yeah, but
maybe
that's
it didn't
just
suit
exactly what
George.
Max gets.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If I was Mercedes, I'm doing the same thing. The guy's won 7 world championships. He's clearly your more experienced driver, and he's proven it year after year after year that it's not a bad. Like he got them second place. He had such a good year last year in a bad car that Mercedes was able to edge out Ferrari at the end.
Well, it's like you read online the blogs and people hate on Lewis, they hate on Max. They have
Yeah.
this tribal instinct almost on their driver. Let's just be honest, they are both great drivers.
Oh, 100%.
Fernando's a phenomenal driver as well.
Yeah, but
I never put Vettel in the same league though. He was good.
let's not have that conversation because that's very subjective. But what we can pull from Vettel and Schumacher and probably Senna during his time, people always hate the guy out in front. People
Yeah.
always gave Lewis crap for being him, even though he was amazing during the beginning of the hybrid era. Max right now is getting that because he's just so far ahead that he makes it boring to watch. It's like not if you're Max Verstappen or his fan or if you're Dutch. it's always the guy in front. Even Vettel, probably the most liked person on the grid during any, well,
He,
not beginning, right? He was very well hated. Like he got
he
booed.
was hated for doing this to the camera all the time.
He was booed, and he's like such a likable person, but he was booed. He
Yeah,
wasn't well liked. So I think that's just a curse of Formula One
being
and
number
being
one.
number one. Yeah, it's just
And
it happens. People get jealous.
remembering Lewis's rookie season against
Alonso.
Alonso, and they went head to head. They ended up on the same number of points, and people were, oh well, Hamilton won or Alonso won because of countback. Who cares? They ended up on the same number of points.
Yeah, there's a bit
Phenomenal,
of.
phenomenal rookie season.
Oh no, there's no discounting that Lewis Hamilton's rookie season was probably the best rookie season anyone's ever had. People did, however, put Oscar Piastri next to him and go, Oscar had more points. It's like more races,
That was later.
and I'm pretty sure races didn't score as much during Lewis's earlier years. Didn't the rule system or the point system change?
The only thing I'll say about Lewis, where I think his main difference between him and Alonso or him and Max is he tends to get he gets emotional, or outside things affect him emotionally, and put his driving.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You look when he was back in 2011 when he was racing against Button and Button beat him. He had a terrible. He was having all sorts of non-race incidents, which was affecting his driving.
Yeah, well, to be fair,
Fernando puts that out of their mind.
To be fair, Lewis, I think he was dating one of the Cheetah Girls, right? Or what? I don't know. I don't really care much about the off-track drama, but he essentially decided, look, all that stuff hurts me as a racer, and I'm trying to be the best there ever has been. So he has really cut that out of himself, and he saw the performance boost. But then you look at Max Verstappen. He gets home and races on his sim. He's like me. He gets home from work and he plays video games. He is so locked into the craft, and Alonso's life is racing. So there's people who get distracted with all the modeling stuff like Ricardo and then even Gasly. And then there's people who are super, super locked in to the point of obsession. And the only time Lewis lost to a teammate in equal machinery was Nico Rosberg when Nico decided
he lost against Button as well in equal machinery.
Whatever. But the thing is, Nico Rosberg decided I'm no more social media, only training, only Formula One, and the only time I do anything else is when I have to do press. So we found that when they completely lock in, that's when they're the best. And boom. Yeah, Lewis is doing that. And I was about to say, is he so emotional? No, his team, it's just the way he communicates, because guess what? Max, every single time he's frustrated, it's F this, F that, you know. So I was about to say, no, Lewis isn't the most emotional, because honestly, you have to be a little bit of a diva in the cockpit.
Yeah, and not only that, people go on about Max using the F word. I lived in Holland. People who are not British or English speaking naturally, like Americans, Aussies, the F word doesn't mean the same to them.
It's their
yeah, it's their oh my god.
Yeah. But there's always been studies about people who swear are more intelligent, stuff like that. So
coming back to Mercedes, I think we have to watch out for George this year if the car's good. He might be getting team orders, and that's not going to sit very well.
Yeah, he's not going to want to play the role of Bottas for sure.
No.
But yeah, I think that's Mercedes. They're always confident. Every week last year, they were like, "This is our week. We have new upgrades coming," and then it doesn't go. They're always super optimistic on social media.
I think George thought Lewis is going to win his 8th championship in 2021. I'm going to go to Mercedes, which he already knew halfway through the season. Lewis will come in for one more year for the new stuff to help set the cars up,
and then it's
be gone.
Yeah.
and he's gone, and it hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah.
And Lewis is going, well, I might stay for another 3 or 4 years.
Well, I mean, you see what
He's
Alonso's been
fit
able to
as
do.
hell.
They're at the peak fitness of their life.
Yeah,
You see what Alonso did. The only reason people like Lewis says he wants to possibly retire and Max says he wants to possibly stop is they say it's so much travel. It's a
yeah.
long year for them. That's the only down part. If they were all racing Silverstone week in, week out, they'd never retire.
Well, I can understand that a little bit about the travel because of what I did for my job.
Yeah, wears
I
you out.
It wears you out. I was traveling possibly at least a third of the year. But luckily, again, I was traveling business class, so that was good.
Yeah.
But it's still tiring as hell.
Yeah, it's all the time shifts, and you get a little jealous because you might be the Formula One legend, but your mates from when you were a kid are now married. They have a family. They get to spend time at home, and you're always on the road. You don't get to make a family. I mean,
No,
obviously there's rules exceptions to that, but a lot of these guys they're not married. They have girlfriends, sure, but no kids.
Max has imported
Not
a family.
not until like towards the end. I mean, yeah, Max pretty much was like, okay, I'll take this one.
I'll take this one. I'll take his seat and his
That works.
girlfriend and his kid.
Lewis doesn't have a wife or someone that we know about.
No.
Alonso's a single guy. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think he's good. No, he's got a permanent girlfriend again now. He got divorced.
Well, okay, so these guys are so locked into that, and then they're going, man, I wish I could have a slice of normality. They don't have normal lives, and so that must be getting onto them. They're like, well, I'm 40 now, or I'm in my late 30s. Time to spend all these millions of dollars and be happy and bored.
Yeah,
but okay, whatever.
Right.
Let's get to
Mercedes.
Ferrari. That's Mercedes done.
Yeah.
Ferrari. Fred Vasseur's first year with a fully non-inherited car. This is his car this year. They're saying their off-season improvements are looking good, but we don't know anything. This is just always rumor mill.
The biggest thing that's happened is they've got rid of their strategist.
Yeah.
He's gone. So maybe they will do a little better on strategy. Maybe they're going to get Carlos doing it from the cockpit.
I think that's the one consistent thing for the past, well, always, but during the Schumacher era, they got a bunch of British people. Strategy was tuned and fine-tuned, and they were super dominant. And then for the past few years, we've just been making fun of Ferrari's strategy. It's just been a consistent thing that fans have made fun of. And so if they can honestly just fix that just a little bit, that's going to help them out a lot. And it's crazy. All these teams have all these, like, we have to develop more engine power. We have to get better aero. Ferrari will get significantly better if they could just get better strategy.
Yeah, the 2022, they would not have won the championship because the car was too unreliable. But they lost a few races because of bad strategy.
Monaco, okay, the biggest one is Monaco with Leclerc. And Leclerc's curse is he can't win Monaco. He can qualify first, but then there's always something that goes wrong. And he was set to win the race. He was in first place, and then they brought him in, goes into the pits, and he's parked behind Sainz for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Lost him the race.
That
was it. That was it.
I've got big hopes. I know listening to Matt and Tommy on podcast P1, Matt's a phenomenal Charles fan and Ferrari fan. But I just don't think somehow Ferrari have got it all together. That's my opinion. I don't think Fred Vasseur is going to be the big difference.
When they got Fred Vasseur from, at that point, Alfa Romeo, I was like, okay, is that really a step forward? It's like, this guy's been in the sport. Sure, he knows how to manage a team, but is he really like going to revamp Ferrari? And I mean, I I'm a hater. You know, I didn't think he was gonna do it, but surprised me. This is last year he inherited the team. Whatever was there was what was gonna happen. This is his first year where this is his project. This is his team. He has made offseason changes to the car. Let's see what happens. Can Fred turn this thing around?
I hope he does. I'd love to see Ferrari
Hey,
challenging again.
and he's funny. It's like he's not a bad personality having a sport.
No.
I'd love to have Ferrari. Everyone wants a Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari three-way battle with McLaren even in there.
Yeah,
you know.
I have one thing I'd like to. Well, come to McLaren in a bit.
Yeah.
So there's not much you can say, but they've got the power in their engine.
Yep.
If they've got the chassis design and the aero right, they'll be there.
Yeah.
Because both I think Charles is on a one-lap race, he's quicker. What Carlos has is more consistent, and he thinks a little bit more. He's not as hot-headed as Charles.
I think Charles relies a lot on team strategy, or he's the team player, whereas Sainz gave up on that last year halfway through. We saw where was it? Singapore. Sainz got won a race, and he essentially ignored the Ferrari strategy, whereas Leclerc will do what he's told. And that's just I think that's the biggest difference between them. Leclerc is so loyal to Ferrari that whatever they tell him to do, he will do it. Whereas Sainz is like this problem child for them, but he gets results. So the difference between the drivers really isn't that big.
Well, the way I would sum it up, let's bring you, as you mentioned, Singapore. Charles used Lando, let him get it within the second because he knew he was still faster than him. So Lando could use the DRS to keep the Mercedes behind him.
Yeah,
because if the Mercedes had got past, they would have got past Carlos as well.
Yeah.
So that was thinking while you're driving.
What I find funny is races after that, different teams would constantly be like, "Why can't we use that strategy? Why can't we do that?" It's like doesn't work.
One-off.
Yeah,
it was a one-off.
It was towards the end of a race where everyone was managing the whole entire race, and then Sainz for 10 or so laps was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use him as the wedge in between."
Yeah,
which is smart, but then you see it. I think it was Mercedes. It was George wanting Lewis to pull him back more. I forget where it was, and it doesn't work in the middle of a race.
No, he tried that in Brazil.
Yeah,
where at that one stage George was faster, and so he wanted to get past Lewis, and he said, and then he burnt his tires out following Lewis, and asked could Lewis keep within DRS so he could use it as a tow. And
it's like, I
think there's bad blood starting there.
Back
to Ferrari.
Well, no, I think that's essentially Ferrari. Quiet in the off season. They're not like Mercedes where they brag about sim times. Their biggest thing is they have a new guy, new plan, new strategy. Essentially, the biggest thing they had to fix was the strategy, was the ride comfort, essentially, the reliability of where the car is going to go, rather than this track, it's a little wonky. That's what they've aimed to fix, and hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Of all the cars, the Ferrari seems to be one of them that seems to bounce more.
Yeah, and apparently their aero design has gone away from that design now. We don't know what the car looks like. There has been 0 livery reveals. We don't even know when they do livery reveals if that's what the car ends up looking like. They have so often during those livery reveals lied about it using old years.
The only teams that don't lie about it are the ones at the back.
Yeah, Haas can't afford to have a fake concept car with a new livery. They're like, yeah, that's it. That's our car.
Yeah. Aston Martin.
Aston Martin, very big surprising year last year. They, I think, are playing the role of let's keep the expectations low because we don't really know what's going to happen in our off-season development. They surprised everyone when Alonso got third at that first race, and then throughout the season they were good. But
Yeah,
their
they had an off
development,
period during the season
well, their
where
development throughout the season just stalled.
I think they went the wrong direction. That might be not understanding the aerodynamics perfectly, but they certainly shocked everyone, and it's like everyone hits on or dumps on Lance Stroll. Beginning of the season, I was going, my God, the guy's got pins in his hands and given injections for pain, and he's keeping right up with Alonso. Maybe one place, and then towards the middle of the season, he just dropped off
It's
for some unknown reason.
it's confidence. Really,
Yeah,
I think that's what it was. Like he didn't have any good results week after week after week after week after week while dealing with wrist pain, and so eventually he goes, eh. He's. I didn't think. Didn't he have a comment going? I might be start playing tennis.
yeah.
It's
I might
like
do,
his mentality was out the door, and then he had one good race. I
and it
think
all started to come back.
no. He had one good race, and then his comments were still like, eh, yeah, whatever.
He had a
So
good race
I
in Japan, but he started to race better as well from then on.
so looked goodish at the end of the year, but I really think Aston Martin is anchored down by the Strolls. I think I've heard rumors that Lawrence wants to sell his part.
I've heard that trying to sell it up because Aramco is now going to be their title sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
The rumors are that Aramco wants to buy Aston Martin. Um,
And
but
dad's a billionaire who likes making a quick buck.
but but there again, Mercedes own part of the Aston Martin car manufacturing team. I think they've got a 20% stake. I don't know they've got any stake in the Aston Martin racing team.
Yeah. So you know a bit
But
more about their wind tunnel stuff. Go ahead and talk about that.
yeah, yeah, well, they use the Mercedes wind tunnel. They haven't their own one built. I don't know if it's in operation yet. Um, and this comes back to the same argument as AlphaTauri moving to the Red Bull, and AlphaTauri always used the Red Bull wind tunnel. So there's nothing new there. They had offices there to do it. All they're doing is they're moving their aerodynamic team to Milton Keynes.
Yeah, but isn't the fun rumor that Mercedes and Aston Martin uses different doors to get into the wind tunnel?
Yeah.
So therefore, it's completely different. Yeah.
So they bring a whole set of new computers in. When
I get that you could easily steal data off of a computer if it's on the network. I completely get it, but at the same time, it's just
it's people.
It's silly off-season talk. That's what it is.
Yeah. It reminds me of a time I was going to buy a Rover 200, which was basically the same car as a Honda Concerto. They were both made by Rover on the Rover production line. And I went to a Honda dealer in the Netherlands to buy it. And they went, oh, no, these are made by Japanese. And I went, what do they do? So they show, here comes a Japanese car down the line. Here comes a Honda. Japanese people on the line. Here comes a Rover. British people on the line. No, it's separate.
Yeah.
They don't need to silly cheat like that.
Yeah.
Now the big problem on that subject is with the wind tunnel is, can Mercedes gain anything from it? Aston Martin can't.
The Mercedes claims, we already talked about it, but Mercedes claims their car is better and faster in every single way because that's what they always say week in, week out. Aston Martin, they're on the quiet side. They're keeping expectations low. They don't really know what their car is going to be like. But they essentially said their design isn't going to be anything where, wow, look at them. They're battling for first place.
There is one.
I have a feeling they're going to be middle of the pack next year.
Well, the one thing is that the Aston Martin uses the Mercedes gearbox as well. So hopefully they're going to be using the new Mercedes gearbox. But we had the thing where the driver position on the Mercedes was further forward than any other car on the grid last season. And they all said it's because they had the bigger gearbox, but Aston Martin had the bigger gearbox. And Aston Martin had the same radiator and cooling system layout as the Mercedes because they buy it as a package.
Hmm.
So I think that was just Mercedes' bad design and
Yep. I think Aston Martin crushed it last year, but
I
again,
hope they do this
we
year.
don't know much about it. I think Alonso's at top form. Hopefully, he doesn't drop off too much. It'd be fun to have a 1 year stint where Alonso and Max are on the same team. I think a lot of people like myself have thought of it, but all just nothing.
It'll never happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
because
I think it might.
Two alphas, it don't work. It don't work.
Well, one alpha acknowledging that the other alpha is younger. So what? Yeah. I don't think so. But whatever. That's Aston Martin.
But I would like to see him win another race.
Yeah, everyone would.
But as
long as Max is in a rocket, I don't think Aston Martin is going to be anywhere close.
No.
The only teams I legitimately think could give Red Bull a run for their money are now Mercedes and Ferrari. But and McLaren. But that's just saying water is wet. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think Mercedes are good. I think Ferrari might be there.
Yeah, but you're a Mercedes hater, which is fine because I am.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
I had a Mercedes.
Yeah. My dad's British. They are the British team, essentially, of Formula One, and he still supports the Dutch guy. So let's.
I lived in Holland for 25 years.
All right, McLaren. They've actually revealed their. Let me just pull up my notes here. They have revealed their new livery. I think it looks sweet. It looks really cool. Obviously, they did not put that on their new car. They put it on their old car. It looks really cool. It's like a black and orange situation, obviously with sponsors. But the rumors are, compared to last year where they were depressed going into the season, going, oh, we've really messed it up. McLaren is very confident with what they're doing. And so they're excited for a good season start.
The only thing that really disappoints me with McLaren is they are a genuine car manufacturer. They make their own cars. They even make their own engines for their own cars. Oh, their design. And yet, in Formula One, they're just an custom engine. I think that's detrimental to them.
Or they buy their engine from somewhere else?
They're buying from Mercedes. I'd like to see McLaren develop their own. They claim they're like Ferrari in the sports car world. They're sports cars. So build your own damned engines for Formula One as well.
Yeah, but it's a budget thing. If they can pull it off, cool. But if not, that's what sets Red Bull apart because they're fully going in the direction of building their own stuff.
Yeah,
Mercedes does it, Ferrari does it, but you go, oh, why does McLaren buy theirs? Then you look at a team like Alpine and you go, well, that's why, because they struggle. They struggle with that, and then they can't fix it.
And the same applies to Williams, Aston Martin, as does McLaren. You're not going to get the best engines out of Mercedes. The best engines, even though they're identical, Mercedes will pick the ones which have that maybe half horsepower more, or they'll get the cream of the crop, and then they sell to their customers what's left. They're all specified the same way.
Yeah,
but you're never going to be, and that way, I don't think McLaren stand a chance of beating Mercedes.
But they still have an engine department, so when they get that bought engine, they still look at it.
No, they're not allowed to touch it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh no,
Well, that's the
they
thing.
do. They do.
That's
They
the
do
reason
do
why
their own
McLaren.
gearbox though.
That's the reason why McLaren was P5 and they were P2.
Yeah,
That's the whole
they do.
difference. But that's to save money, save costs. It's the Haas
Yeah,
approach, and
they do develop their own gearboxes though. They don't use Mercedes gearboxes.
so maybe 2026 comes around, they'll have something figured out. But
Well,
for
no, they
now,
just signed it. They just signed a contract with Mercedes till 2029 for engines.
oh, oh well, maybe they're not gunning for P1, which is stupid. But
And to me,
to
that's
them, it's just we're in the sport, we have good drivers, we're liked, people buy our cars. That's all. We're here to
back,
sponsor ourselves.
back in the 70s. You had almost all the teams using Ford Cosworth engines. You had Ferrari, and you had Ligier using the Renault engine, but that was it. All
Mhm.
the rest
So I
were,
mean, that's McLaren has essentially kept that going. Then they
yeah,
just get a reliable engine and go, look, this sport's all about aerodynamics now.
it is, and that proves it with coming back to Red Bull when they had the Renault engine. Look how they crushed Renault.
Crush Renault,
Yeah,
yeah, because the aero,
yeah.
and all the other stuff happening. So I
So,
don't think it's a terrible thing. I
but
get your point, but at the end of the day, we're talking about it like it's just willy nilly. They're saving millions and millions of dollars by doing
yeah,
that. They don't need to have
but
a manufacturing plant just for Formula One engines.
but I think that for McLaren this year, I don't think Lando is going to get it so easily with Oscar.
I
I think
think I think
Oscar,
Oscar had a really good rookie season,
yeah,
and you know rookies don't get worse;
they get better.
they get better. And I think Lando made it clear last year he was the number one guy, but
Yep,
um, did Lando resign?
he was signed up till the end of 25.
Okay, so Lando's there for a few years, but I guarantee you, if that gap starts getting closer and closer and closer, Lando's not going to want to stick around for when it changes.
Yeah, and the thing being is, the main advantage that Lando had over Oscar was in race performance, and that was basically tire management.
Tire
Oscar's
management
Oscar's
experience,
Oscar's going to learn that,
he
and
will.
he's going to cut out his little mistakes,
Yeah.
and don't forget he'd been off racing for a year
Yep.
because he'd been sitting in the Renault garage.
Uh, I think I think Red or Lando is in a perfect position right now in his career where
Yep.
he just has to keep doing what he's doing, and eventually, when a seat opens up at Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, he has the pick of the litter. So he
I
just
th-
has to keep it going.
I think if Lewis doesn't get his next championship by the end of 25, he'll call it quits. And I think then
Possibly.
Lando will go, bye, McLaren.
You
I'm
don't,
going there.
you don't know that because for all we
It's my
know,
belief.
Sainz gets poached by Audi, and then boom, Lando goes to Ferrari, or Red Bull offers Lando a ridiculous amount of money for being their second driver, and then boom, so I think Lando won't stick around at McLaren to watch Piastri get closer and closer, or even start beating him or 50-50ing it. I think smart choice for him is you've
But
been
he
there at
does.
McLaren, time to move on. But we'll
But
see.
he,
We'll see.
but he also beats himself up too much as well. When he
Yeah,
has
when
a
things
bad
go wrong.
weekend, when things go wrong, he beats himself up, and he shouldn't do that.
It's he's
It happens.
very much a roller coaster person where
Yeah,
the lows are really really low and then the highs are really really high, and so yeah, I
if
think Lando's a great driver. I think
yeah,
we're
I
gonna
do.
see him for many years, along with essentially George Russell, Max Verstappen. They're all relatively close to the same age. Leclerc, they're the future of the sport. Piastri cemented that he was the rookie that's also going to be in there for a while. So, um, Lando
Well,
Norris, McLaren
if
might not
Lando
happen forever, but will be there for the next 2 years.
and if Lando moves to Red Bull, you've got two Belgians driving for Red Bull then.
All right, talking about Alpine. All right, I think that's essentially McLaren's spot, right? They
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
make their own engines.
yeah.
Car looks cool. They're confident. Drivers are honestly young and good. And other teams wish they had the driver lineup like that.
And they've got a good um,
Good
overall package.
management.
The management, the staff, their pit crews,
Yeah, it's all solid.
phenomenal.
Their pit stops were great. I think they had the
World
record
record
last
this
year.
year.
Yeah.
World record last
So
year.
I mean, the team's looking solid. Hopefully, they can keep it going because the only reason they were in fifth this year or last year was because they had a poor start to the season.
And they admitted at the beginning they
Yeah,
knew that the improvements weren't going to come
yeah.
until round about Austria,
So
which they did.
it'll be exciting. Yeah, they said it was gonna. Unlike Mercedes, they said it was gonna happen at this race. These upgrades are gonna change everything, and they brought it, and it was true. So McLaren's in a pretty good spot right now, although they didn't look like it in the constructors battle. Should be exciting to see what they look like when they put a full complete season together.
Yeah, and it does. But let's go on.
All right,
Alpine.
all right. Let's talk about the worst.
Alpine.
Let's talk about the bottom five part of the grid where it gets a little not boring, but sloppy. Essentially, is where you can start seeing the mistakes. And Alpine. I don't know how you say it. I'm not French. Alpine. All right.
You've got French blood.
Just because I'm English. Alpine. They had a down year from 2022.
Yep.
Number one. Well, let's talk about drivers real quick. They lost Alonso. They fumbled Piastri, and so that happened.
But I think Piastri's been a good, not Piastri, Gasly.
Well, good backup to what Piastri could have been.
Yeah,
but
and Gasly's not a bad driver.
No. I'm saying Gasly's good, but they fumbled Alonso.
Piastri.
They fumbled Piastri, and so that's on their driver end. And then you look at the car. The car was down on power. They had engine problems. They're claiming that, or they wanted the FIA to change the rules so that the engines would be more equalized. That didn't work. They said that the problem with their car is that they don't recharge their electricity as good as the other teams. They had a lot of people fired last year. The CEO got moved around, new team principal, just a lot of messy things. And now they're essentially their biggest bragging point is that the work environment seems a bit better now.
The losing of Piastri was just pure stupidity. They assumed that he was going to beef with them, even though they didn't have a contract.
Yeah, it was so dumb.
They were absolutely dumb. And,
French overconfidence.
And any driver who wins all his championships and they're not signed on the dotted line for the next season early, so he can't sign with someone else. That was just, and no wonder Otmar was sacked. That was one for that reason alone.
The biggest fump, because we saw then what Piastri did at McLaren and went, wow, this guy's going to be really, really good. So they the best rookie of last year, they fumbled him. It made France, Alpine, Renault, all of that. It made them look like a joke. And then on top of it,
amateurs.
It made them look like amateurs. Yeah, it was just a sloppy situation. But then you've got Ocon, the guy who races his teammates really, really hard, crashing into Gasly in Australia, costing them there. And just the chemistry doesn't seem to be there with the drivers. Usually you see a team, like the best example was Bottas and Hamilton. They got along so well together.
Yeah.
You look at Alpine, you go, you'd think two French guys would be perfect for each other, but it turns out.
Well, they have history as well.
Yeah, they don't like each other.
Categories. No, but with you also
it's a sloppy situation.
You take Ocon, Ocon was given his one and only win at the Hungaroring in 2022,
Was
I
because of
believe.
Alonso.
Oh no, 2021. 2021.
Yeah.
No, 2020. Yeah, 21 was because of Alonso defending like hell against Hamilton and
Hmm.
holding him up for about 5 or 6 laps,
Yeah.
which gave him the
Enough
time
time,
to
yeah,
win the
for
race.
Hamilton to not catch up. So
Yeah.
Alonso
But
does all that, and
then he
then
races and pushes Alonso off the track in the next season.
yeah, the best example was the moment that encapsulated everything was when the Alpines are racing each other, and then here comes a guy who's struggling in Daniel Ricciardo in a McLaren doing a
Yeah.
double overtake. It was
Yes.
like it wasn't Max or Lewis or someone in a Ferrari doing it. It was a guy who was struggling finally does a really 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 good double overtake.
Because he was
It's like
concentrating, but it's because he was concentrating on holding his teammate behind him.
yeah, so I don't think Alpine's going to have a good year. There's no like oh we have a new engine or we've completely hired a new aero department. It's like no, they're essentially going, well, everyone at work seems to be happy with each other. And that's all we have for you. They did say that they have software upgrades, but
No,
I
but they've already admitted there was a meeting in Birmingham where they interviewed drivers and Sky did it. And they interviewed Steiner. And Ocon went, our car's going to be slow next year. To me, that's sackable.
why
You
would you even
know,
say it?
yeah.
Like
Oh,
I understand exactly what Aston Martin's doing by downplaying. Look, we don't think their development's going to be there. That's not saying your car's going to be bad necessarily. That's just saying we don't think we're going to surprise everyone like we did last year. But then for you to just to flat out say our car is bad. Now, I know Lando was doing it last year during the beginning of their season in 2023. Who was going, oh, it's a really bad car. Oh, you were able to get so much out of it. Oh, we were lucky, blah, blah, blah. Saying it before the season starts off of a bad year, it's just, we signed this guy for 5 years. Where's the Leclerc loyalty? You know?
I'd like to, at this point, I'd like to make one thing. If anyone watching this is really enjoying father and son rant at each other about Formula One, give us a good thumbs up and subscribe below.
Usually do it at the end, but this is a long
No,
hour
midway,
pod.
midway.
Fair enough. But yeah, Alpine's in a sloppy situation. It's not looking like there's anything really going their way, and honestly, that probably means that some of the teams below them are gonna start challenging them. They were in this weird limbo place where they couldn't get fourth because they were so far in the points, and then the team that was behind them in
Aston.
so sorry, the team that was in they were sixth place. Whatever. They were sandwiched in between two teams, and there's no way for them to do anything about it.
Oh, they were ahead of
And
McLaren at one time.
oh,
And
McLaren. Okay, I see. I see.
McLaren leapfrogged them by quite a serious number of points in the
Yeah,
end.
but they went from 170 points in 2022 to 120. That's a lot of points lost in 1 year. So I don't like they've claimed that they've revamped their manufacturing and whatnot. But yeah, you've got a driver that's already talking bad about the car. You've got internal team struggle from the year before. If they have a bad start to this year, that's just going to get worse. More people are going to get fired. I think Alpine right now is on a lifeline situation.
I like Gasly as a racer.
I do.
And I think he's going to bring more to the team than Ocon. And hopefully Alpine see that and make the structure order within their team to support that. Because he's going to pull in more points.
Well, did he last year, or were they fairly even?
They were fairly even, but Gasly won out on top. And don't forget,
In
he
his
crashed
first
him
year with a
out.
new team, and he
He
crashed him
crashed
out in
him out,
Australia.
and he was forced to let Ocon pass in a couple of races as well because he got team orders. And being a team player, he allowed it to happen, even though he was disgruntled about it.
Yeah.
So he'd have won if it had been natural racing. He would have won by even more points.
So Alpine's kind of in this situation where they're just hoping to stay alive, but then the team right below them, Williams, has so much momentum year in, year out. They're probably the only team where we can confidently say they do
Could get
better.
better.
They get better from the last year to the next year to the next year to the next year. So we knew Williams was really, really bad 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and they've gotten better steadily every single year, getting P7 in the constructors last year. And
And the big
now I have a feeling they're going to start chasing teams like Alpine in the middle of the pack.
And the big improvement they've got this year as well that we know of is they've changed their font for the Williams
Yeah,
name.
they've changed their font, so now we can read Williams in a different way. It's a whole new identity. But no, we've been talking about the drivers here and there. Logan Sargent had a pretty bad, not exciting rookie year, but that was a rookie year. So
and don't forget, he was always on the back end of the updates.
True.
As
Yeah.
the car was updated, he was getting updated 1 or 2 races later.
Yeah.
So that's not fair to compare him
To Albon.
too much to Albon.
Well,
Although Albon is a great defender.
You saw it in he really is. Albon showed last year that, wow, let's not discount this guy. Last year for certain races he was at a very elite level, maximizing that car to heights that a lot of people didn't expect. But then you had Logan Sargent, always like keeping the qualifying gap wasn't too crazy between them. Sometimes it was, but like it wasn't the Max being P1 and Checo being P9. It was always like point something, and hopefully that gets better. Hopefully Sargent improves.
And he did lose out a few times because of track limits.
Yeah, I remember very early in the season.
He beat him and got for silly track limits as well.
In Jeddah. It was Jeddah. Everyone was like, holy moly, this rookie's really got some speed. Oh, he clipped the millimeter of the pit wall white line.
Entry line.
Yeah.
And that can not, I won't say it
demoralized him.
It won't take your confidence away, but it makes you more cautious.
But it was the beginning of just a string of unfortunate things. And so here you are, a rookie, hoping that you get to race for more than 1 year. You just saw a different rookie get fired from AlphaTauri. And so the confidence is shot, and you're trying to just overcome that week in, week out. So hopefully he has a smoother start to the season.
And
so the confidence
not only that, the British media, which is merciless.
Yeah.
It is merciless. Hit on him as bad as they were hitting on Perez.
Yeah.
They're always saying he doesn't deserve to be in Formula One. He's this, that, and the other. To be honest, if they're trying to get Formula One to be acceptable in America, now we've got 3 races here now, you've got to have some American drivers.
Yeah, I think so too. One. I think Logan's good enough. He's in a situation where he's in a backmarker team. I wouldn't quite say it's that bad, but he's in a team that's in the back of the pack, so he doesn't exactly get to Perez his way out of it, where the car just does it for him. And yeah, Albon was at top form, and here's him as a rookie just trying to make it. I think next year this year should be a better year for him if he can get the momentum started early.
And maybe now, I think Williams could have helped the situation by acknowledging that we're going to sign him on a little bit earlier.
You can't really fault them because they're like, this kid might not have it. We don't want to be stuck with him if he's not that good.
But what did you?
I think James Vowles played it quite well.
Yeah,
you never know. There could be another rookie that we haven't ever heard of. That's a Piastri out of nowhere that is just really, really good. And so
they did support him.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think they did as good of a job as they could have without
And
flat out saying you're not racing here next year, or
I
you are.
think I think he's going to give Albon a little bit of a closer run this year,
Yeah, I think
and
Williams.
that'll mean he's going to be in Formula One for a while.
I think Williams. They've changed the font to their lettering, so that's better for the arrow design on their paintwork. And so no, I legitimately think Williams is going to be one of those midfield teams where they're constantly going to be like popping in the top 10, and hopefully both drivers can do it, not just the one.
I think this season they're going to beat Alpine.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to imply. Yeah. Williams has this momentum of they get better every year. They have new management in James Voles, which looked really, really good. The team looks very well structured. They're having fun. They're having good times. You know, you don't look in their pit box and go, "Oh, they're dreadful. They're sad." That's Alpine. They're dreading the next week because they know someone else is going to get fired. Whereas Williams is dyeing their hair blonde and having fun and da 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 da.
Look at the teams who actually do have genuine fun. Red Bull,
Aston Martin, McLaren.
Mercedes a little bit, but not to the same extent.
Yeah, very German fun.
Yeah, even though it's Germified English, if you will.
Yeah, it's a very Germanic fun. We are having fun. We are in P2. This is good. Yeah.
And just a little bit of a background, we feel we can criticize Four Nations because he has got in him he's got German, Dutch, British, and American nationality.
Yep.
So those four nationalities for us are fair game.
Yeah, and we are both European mutts. In fact, in the fact that we pretty much have almost every single European nation running through our blood. So we can make fun of the French without any Italians. It's all fair game because
the Spanish are off the hook.
Yeah. Plus, they don't really have a team. They have Carlos Sainz.
Apart from Gibraltar.
But yeah, so that's Williams. Williams.
Now the real dark
looks
horse,
good.
I think,
momentum's good. Go ahead.
The real dark horse is AlphaTauri, or what it's going to be called, I think, the Racing
Bulls.
Because they're going to do in a way a Haas. They're going to take now for the first time engine gearbox, which is the same as the Red Bull. They're taking the Red Bull 2000 last year's or 2023 suspension front and rear, but they have to design their own chassis and they have to design their own aero. But that's going to give them a big boost.
Yeah, essentially the big brother is saying, "All right, this is how you do it. Get it done.
We're giving you long enough."
And they were talking. I forget who was saying it, but essentially, Red Bull was really annoyed that AlphaTauri was just not performing. It was a stain on their reputation, and so they're correcting it.
They used to do better.
They used to do better. Well, it was what? Gasly, Tsunoda. Well, it was before Tsunoda even. They looked good. They were P4-ish. It was during the 2021 year. They were pretty decent. Gasly pulling out P2s here and there. And they have not done very well in this new regulation era.
Do you remember the preseason at Bahrain 21, where Tsunoda was the rookie, and he was opening that DRS wing every little bit of the straight during, and they go, "This guy's fantastic." Well, he was getting aero advantage on a lot of the places, but he was
aggressive.
It was aggressive, and they did well that season.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because at that point, pretty much everyone had figured out the 2021 car concept. That era had been maximized.
They were following a lot of the Red Bull components again.
Yeah.
And then 2022, we went, we're doing it our own way. So they still had to have the engine and gearbox, but they did their own chassis, they did their own suspension, and that suspension is what makes the Red Bull.
Yeah, and I think the the drivers situation, it was so sloppy last year. Okay, we have Nick DeFries. All right, we fired Nick DeFries. All right, we're bringing in Liam Lawson. All right, now Ricardo's it. Or was it
Oh, they brought in
the
Ricardo
Fries?
first.
Ricardo breaks his wrist. Liam Lawson in there for a few races. Does pretty good.
He got points.
Back in comes Ricardo. Ricardo starts doing, like, Mexico was really good. So the car had potential.
I think
they just need
beat
a bit of
on points. Liam Lawson did.
Not hard because Sargent scored like 1 point. But then, Ricardo and Tsunoda now have a full offseason. We've seen the Red Bull videos of them having a good time together. I think they're going to be one of those have fun teams. But with all those new parts, they will be having fun. And so, they're going to probably battle. I'm not going to say top, but they're going to be in the middle of the pack battling.
I think they're going to be chasing they're going to be the bottom of the top 5.
Okay. And then last year they were...
Might be 6.
And last year people were confidently saying they were the worst car. So that's a massive upgrade for them coming up and should be interesting.
And if you listen to McLaren, one of their disadvantages, they're going to be giving wind tunnel time to Red Bull. But I don't believe that.
That's just Zach Brown writing letters. I think this is a big year for Yuki to prove himself.
And Ricardo.
Ricardo to prove himself. They both have hunger. I think they're both hungry for that second seat at Red Bull. I think they can, like, if they have really, really good seasons and Perez has a lackluster one, well, there you go. Whoever the better AlphaTauri. So there's a lot of motivation for the drivers to do well. A lot of things helping the car get improved. So that team, the Racing Bulls, should be in the points a lot.
The only thing I will say is that if Honda want a Japanese driver in their alliance with Aston Martin for 26,
Yuki might go to take Stroll's spot
in 25 just to get in with the team so they work as a unit better. You need a year.
So you think Yuki might replace Stroll in 2025? Early prediction?
Don't forget, Honda refused
to work with Alonso,
Alonso in the IndyCar. They said he's not driving a car without engines.
Well, that's because
when
it was McLaren, he said GP2 engine, GP2 engine, Iconic moment. It was really funny at the time, but the grudges will be held. We'll see how that goes. I have heard the rumors too of him going to Aston Martin, but we'll see. AlphaTauri has a proving year in front of them, and I think
on that, I think you need a lead driver in Aston Martin, and I think Yuki at the moment is still a good number 2.
Yuki's
would mean Stroll has to go.
Yuki's so short that he comes off as a rookie every year.
He's the only guy that's got a pillow in his car.
I felt bad. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him because he had no consistent teammate last year. So he had to compete with 3 different people.
And Jed basically beat them all.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson gave him the hardest time.
No, Daniel did. Whatever. That doesn't matter.
We're going to argue on that one.
We can argue about that for a while. I like Daniel. Dad thinks he's past it. But okay, cool. That's 8 teams now. Let's get to the sloppy P9 team. The team that doesn't know what their name really is, because when they first launched it as Alfa Romeo's Kick Steak F1 team, everyone was like, "What the hell?" So I think they
formerly called Alfa Romeo is now a stake in your heart.
I think the official name, or at least when I googled it this morning, is Stake F1 Team. So stake.com is a gambling website. It is a gamble of a car. That's the best thing you can say about them. It is a very much gamble situation.
Engine and gearbox.
Yeah, but that just means, are we really going to see massive improvement from year to year? Is Bottas motivated? Is Zhao going to push himself hard? I have no real indication of improvement on that team.
You mean Bottas, the Australian redneck?
The Australian Finland redneck, yes.
Yeah.
It's Bottas essentially at Mercedes was tired of the 1 year deals, gets this multi-year deal with Alfa Romeo, had a really good start with them, or Alpha. So
2022.
Alfa Romeo had a really good start with them, looked really good. We're like, wow, Bottas, good for him. And then just kind of stopped caring.
Well,
Said, I have a multi-year contract. I'm just gonna chill.
There's a couple of reasons for that. Alfa Romeo in the 2022 season were the only car to get under the weight limit.
Yeah.
The original weight limit. And then they gave the cars an extra 10 kilos, I think. So
that screwed them.
They had to start with a car where they could balance it better, because they don't redesign their car to put more weight on it. They use ballast.
Yeah. So and keep in mind that was Fred Vasseur's team at the time. So shows you how good Fred is at sticking with the guidelines, I guess.
So they were, that's one of the reasons they were fast at the beginning. Yep. The other teams dropped weight during that season.
And then boom.
Then boom, they were gone. And the problem being is, and I think my feeling is that Audi, who are basically the owners now, are going to be getting Sauber, Stake F1, whatever, to do some design checks so they can improve the reliability, not reliability engine-wise, of the suspension, steering, chassis designs.
Yeah, the best way to put it is Stake F1 team. There's one team gunning for you, and it's Haas. They're the only team that they both Stake F1, Haas suck, and honestly, haven't heard anything crazy coming out of Alfa Romeo, other than they've changed their names 3 times. That Bottas is pretty much retired already, and that Zhao has no one really to push himself other than himself. So, yeah, the only thing that Stake F1 has now is that Haas wants to not be last place.
I will make this prediction, though. I think it's Bottas's last year with Alfa Romeo.
I think so too. I think it's his last year in Formula One.
Yeah, but with Zhao, and again, it comes down to money. I think Audi might want him simply because of the Chinese market, and it's a developing market for their cars, road cars.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm putting too much into that, but that's my feeling on it.
I agree.
Zhao's not a bad driver.
Zhao's a good driver, clean driver. He has had accidents where it was pretty much bad luck. Well, Silverstone is the best example of that.
Silverstone, I cannot understand why George didn't get a race suspension for that.
Because he
basically just shoved him off the road.
Well, he made a mistake on track, but it was after the accident, the stuff he did to get the stewards and whatnot.
Yeah,
it showed that it wasn't deliberate. It was a shocking moment, but that George did all the right things after. I think that's one of those traumatizing moments where you really see someone's character. George jumped on the things to.
Oh, yeah.
I think George didn't mean to do it, and then did a good job with getting those marshals over there.
But when you have a bad start, you've got to be more aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
Yeah.
He pulled over and whacked.
George is. I always think, there's 2 dirty drivers. Well, there's a bunch of dirty drivers on the grid. There's 2 drivers that annoy me with it. Ocon being number 1, and then George being number 2. Now, mostly that's because I didn't like it when George crashed into Max at Baku and then had that whole little kerfuffle. Yeah, I don't know.
You see, I remember the days when racing drivers like Hunt would punch somebody out for that.
Yeah, the good old days before
the When
before
they're all
everyone had
sitting
a
there
camera.
smoking the
Yeah.
cigarettes and drinking
But
whiskey out of the bottle.
see, that's when there was like 4 people with cameras at a race.
Yeah.
Now everyone has a camera in their pocket.
Yeah.
But okay, that's
And
stake F1. It's a gamble, and I don't think it's going to pay off. Uh, they will be Audi in the future, so essentially they're in a little bit of a collecting
no
money
man's
period.
no, they're
Yeah,
in
they're
no
no
man's
man's
land.
land. They're just collecting sponsor money as much as they can.
Yeah,
And
but
to be
to
fair, I
get
think
more sponsor money, they've got to get results.
yeah, but I will say they have a Kick sponsorship. That's one of the streaming websites that people use.
Yeah.
That's a smart sponsor because a lot of young people use that stuff. Stake is another one of these social media situations. So they've done a good job at finding cool sponsors that people know about, but can their car so they have the halo with the cool sponsors, and that's always going to look great for the sponsors pictures wise. But at the end of the day, and it's something Williams struggled back in the day with their money, they want results. People who are investing into these teams want to see their car have good results. If I spent $1 million on Max Verstappen, I want him to get P1, not P2.
No, of course. But the thing I would say to me makes Stake, Sauber, Alfa Romeo, whatever you want to call them,
Audi.
better than
Kick.
Haas, Audi, is they actually do design and build their own chassis and aerodynamics.
Yeah. So I think that's the most we
Coming
can
on
really.
to the next
Yeah.
team.
Let's talk about the next team who doesn't do that. Haas.
Haas. I call them the IKEA of Formula One or Factory 5 racing.
Now we're not going to hate on IKEA because this is an IKEA couch, but what we're saying is they're cheap.
They're cheap. A 2-man.
3.
Is it 3? I
It's
thought it
3.
was 2.
It's 3.
Their pit wall looks childish.
It's
Sucks.
stupid. To save $250,000 a year, they've cut their pit wall, which just looks like Formula One is a sport where if you want to be in it, you got to spend the money. And this is a team that says we're going to cut costs.
And that's fair enough. I can accept that.
No, I get it, but it's just like, then do you belong? Because there's other people that want to play the game and spend the money.
And they could use that $250,000 and buy new wheel guns. Their wheel guns date back to 2016.
Oh, really? Oh, God. Wow, I didn't even know that. So, yeah. Haas is essentially the build-a-car team. You buy parts from all over the place and put it together.
They use the engine, gearbox, suspension, steering.
Drivers.
From Ferrari. They use, I think it's the Italian car maker or parts maker who makes the many cars, but they also do the Indy car.
Yeah.
Delaro, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Who design and I think build their chassis and their aero. So I always thought that they had to. I know they're complying with the rules, but everyone goes on about the spirit of the rules. They're not complying with the spirit because people complaining about AlphaTauri or Racing Bulls. At least they design themselves their own chassis, their own aerodynamics,
and they look like a Formula One team.
Yeah, buying it out is not the same.
No. Well, okay. The first few years for Haas in Formula One, they proved that, hey, maybe that does work. Maybe you can do this. And then they've just gotten worse and worse and worse. Whereas you look at Williams, who doesn't do that, and they've gotten better and better and better. So saving money and Formula One are two things that really don't make sense to me. And then they also have 2 veteran drivers that, they're not going to get better, which they're holding up seats for. Haas is essentially a feeder team, should have always been a feeder team for young talent to then get promoted. And then, thank you, here's the money exchange for that, blah, blah, blah. But no, now they're bringing in veterans, and they're the biggest Haas stories. They fired Gunther Steiner, the face of Haas.
Yeah. And the thing about Haas is they brought in no other team in history, I don't think, has brought in 2 rookies in one season. One of them, it is arguable whether he should have even been in a racing car.
Yeah, so Haas goes from no rookies ever to 2 rookies to those rookies now no longer race in Formula One.
Yeah. Now,
it's just so like the driver's side is so sloppy. But we've ignored the biggest news out of Haas, and it's Gunther Steiner out. His best friend and buddy sitting in one of the 3 seats next to him, Komatsu, is in, and Gene Haas wants improvements in Haas, wants the car to be better. And Komatsu goes, yeah, of course, the car's going to be better. But then he also says at the same time, actually, because we tried a new thing with our car at the end of last year, we are behind in development. And
not only that,
we are going to have a rough start to 2024. So it's like, what is Haas doing? They just shot their spokesperson in the foot. Haas has no identity now anymore. You're not going to see him on Netflix Drive to Survive for next year, because I don't think Komatsu has the personality of Steiner. What are they doing? They're essentially setting themselves up.
The other thing is, again, it comes back to what a team's doing. People complain about AlphaTauri now moving into Red Bull. Haas have offices within the Ferrari offices themselves. They're all over the place. They're in Britain, they're in Italy, and they're in America. But there's no originality.
No.
There's no.
Their color scheme's ugly. It's just it's a hard team to support.
I had great hopes for Haas for the 2022 season, because Delaro had been designing the Indy cars. Indy cars are ground effect cars. So I thought, maybe these guys have got to jump ahead of everybody. But unfortunately, not.
Turns out that when you have no money to spend, then they refuse to develop their car week in, week out. It's like, hey, we're going to do our first update at Hungary, which is like halfway through the season, pretty much.
And 2021, they did nothing. They just put the same car out as the 2020 car. They didn't do any improvement, nothing. They said, we're putting it all into the new regulations.
And it didn't pan out. Yeah.
I don't believe Andretti could be worse than them.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Haas is so bad. They don't want to be last place. Gene Haas doesn't want to be last place. So he finally fired Gunther Steiner because Gunther has pretty much been playing like fiddle with him. Hi, Mom. And Mom's about to walk in.
And give me a drink.
Gunther Steiner was, if I would have fired Steiner, I would have fired him years ago. But you fire him now, many years later. Fire him many years later, and then you're expecting the new guy that was already on the team last year to somehow do something better with a few months' notice?
Yeah, they're going to go nowhere.
They're setting themselves up to be out, and then Andretti's. I think that's Andretti's move, right? Buying Haas.
Gene Haas, because there's history between those two teams in America in IndyCar racing and so forth.
Refuses.
He's refusing to sell to them. He decided he wanted to go to the Hollywood route, whichever way you want to pronounce it. So Ryan Reynolds tried to get involved, and he told him to get lost.
Gene Haas
But he,
told Reynolds
yeah,
to get lost.
yeah, and he's got backers. He's got
Oh,
money.
we completely ignored that all these random celebrities backed Alpine last year
Yeah,
in investment. That's
that
someone should have
should
told them that their team's not doing too well, but whatever. Because that's where
well,
Ryan Reynolds went with his money. A
yeah, but he
couple
also
a
bought Rex.
boxer.
He bought Wrexham as well. So yeah,
Well,
they are doing better now.
we have talked about Rex, or that's a whole nother conversation. But owning a team, you don't consider how much money owners of teams make. They make.
Oh,
I think it's a bit different with Formula One because it's so expensive. But you own a football club, you add a celebrity name like Ryan Reynolds to it, you sell out all the seats, you're making your money back quickly.
not only that. One of the reasons I know he's almost a billionaire, but even Toto Wolff isn't going to go, oh, I don't need to work for Mercedes for 40 million a year. He still likes 40 million a year.
Yeah, but we're ignoring the fact like Toto. I don't think does it for money. Toto is one of these guys who grew up with racing, got too tall for it, which is
our problem.
Yeah, our problem. But loves racing, so he's got a dream job. He knows it, and so he's not going to exactly leave. And he's in one of the top teams. So,
by the way, he's 6'5" and I'm 6'2". That's why we're too big for racing. I'm not going to talk about it.
And I'm not going to stand up because I'm wearing pajamas that are Christmas themed. So yeah, that's silly. I look kind of professional
on top.
Yeah. But so the biggest point there is we got so bored of talking about Haas that we talked about anything else.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing is
them.
Haas is boring. Their color scheme is boring. Their drivers are a German and a Danish person. Boring. There's nothing exciting going on there.
I do like Hulkenberg. I think he's been one of the
okay. I don't like Hulkenberg because I was a Schumacher guy,
yeah,
and essentially took his spot. But that's
I think
else.
Hulkenberg, in a way, has been a German equivalent of Alonso without the 2 world championships. Mm-hmm. He's always gone to the wrong teams.
Yeah. Well, this is his attempt to get back into Formula One.
Yeah.
And prove that Haas is just not that team that you can pull that off in.
Having size 14 shoes doesn't help being a Formula One driver.
No. So that's all 10 teams. The year looks exciting. Max stomped last year. Kind of sounds like he's going to do it again. Mercedes says they're faster. Like always, Ferrari cautiously optimistic. Aston Martin kind of not sounding too happy. McLaren sounding confident. And then you got Williams momentum going up, and then Alpine depressed, AlphaTauri up, Stake F1 team, Haas. So it should be exciting.
One thing, people are complaining about the ground effect rules, whatever. Apart from Max, and I just say Max alone, all the drivers are so close on times.
Yeah.
Now, Max doesn't do his qualifying times. He gets beat. But his car and Perez's car are set up for race.
Yeah.
Not for qualifying.
Oh, yeah. That's mostly because they recognize that, look, qualifying gets you, sure, in the front. But at the end of the day, if our race pace is just a second faster than everyone, we don't care about qualifying.
Yeah. And also, look, they used to have the 105% rule. They still have. Which means if you don't get within 105% of the first place driver, you're out.
Are you talking about qualifying times?
Yeah. They're all within a second and a half.
Yeah.
Whereas 10 years ago, or at the start of,
there's
10 years
seconds
ago,
apart.
Teams were being dropped out of the races because they were outside the 105% rule.
Yeah, that is one thing.
Got closer.
That is one notable thing about last year. At least let's talk about qualifying times, because race pace was completely dominated by Red Bull last year. Qualifying times, I don't think it's ever been closer.
Yeah, and let's face
But
it,
it just
Mercedes even
consistently
got on pole.
consistently it looks like there's top teams and bottom teams. Like it still happens, but now the fraction it's point seconds.
Yeah, but even Sargent got into the top 10 in a couple of races, or one race at least.
He
So
qualified decently towards the end of the season, yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot better than it has been.
Yeah, it
But
should be exciting. Hopefully Red Bull doesn't stomp everyone out. Although I am a Red Bull Max Verstappen because I was born in the Netherlands fan. Hopefully it's more exciting than last year, but we'll see. We'll
well,
see.
Max was born in Belgium, don't forget.
Mm,
So anyway, that's just a family thing we argue about. But before we stop this, let's quickly on Nick de Vries and Liam Lawson.
sure.
Nick de Vries, to me, was such a disappointment. The AlphaTauri was not the best of car at the start of the season.
It
I
was the worst
fully
car.
agree. It was still better than the Haas.
No, it wasn't. Not no. Because remember how Hulkenberg qualified quite well on it?
Oh, Hulkenberg, but not
Oh, they still did better than Nick.
Magnussen.
The Freeze is always whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
And he was extremely, people go, oh, Max is aggressive. That Dutchman's it. He made Max look like a little chicken.
Yeah,
He was taking drivers out, particularly Magnussen.
he was making stupid driver
Yeah.
mistakes, and then he decides, "Hey, I'm going to race aggressively." And of all the people I'm going to pick out on the grid to do it, I'm going to do it against Magnussen. It's like, yeah, that's stupid.
The one driver that's
The one
hardest
driver
to
that's
pass.
the hardest to pass because he's known to be an aggressive person.
Yeah, makes his car so wide.
So yeah, what's your point?
So glad he's out of it.
Sure. I mean, that was an end of a discussion thing.
And people go, go on. Oh, that's mean of Red Bull. You give him a chance. No, this guy's 28 years old.
Yep.
There was a reason why Mercedes didn't have him put in another team, and we found out why last year.
Well, he had that really good Monza race for Williams, and everyone's like, "Wow, look at that!"
Yeah, what tracks were Williams good at?
Straight
Tracks
line
with long straights where you get what was Monza? Long straights.
Yep. And honestly, it's a track that pretty much everyone from their first racing game on plays. So it's a track everyone's really familiar with. But yeah, Liam Lawson, your point.
And I look at Liam Lawson, and did he actually have a practice session in Zandvoort? I don't think. I think he went straight into qualifying, and he had a good race.
Pretty good race, and probably the hardest race of all year to race in because of the weather.
Because of weather.
Rain off, on, off.
And he never knew from 1 week to the next whether he was going to be racing again.
Yeah, but that's the life of a reserve driver. Yeah, you can't expect him to keep a seat, hold a seat. He's still young, and they really wanted Ricciardo.
I do think he deserves a place in Formula One.
I think he's made an argument for himself, and you never know. You never know.
Well, there's 2024 season. A lot of drivers are out of contract.
Well, that's the thing. This last year, we always talk about what's the actual term they call it? Like mad. It's when everyone does their contract stuff.
Yeah, I forget the term. It's around mid-season.
Mid-season, right before the summer break.
Yeah.
All these contract negotiations happen. All these new people sign different teams. That didn't happen last year because everyone had their multi-year contract into this season. A lot of people, Perez, Bottas, those are two I'm thinking of. Sainz. A lot of people are on the bubble this year. Are they going to stay on their teams? Are they going to get let go? What's happening?
Well, we know. The rumor is that Charles is going to be offered a contract in 2029.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me.
And they're offering initially they offered Charles one for a year,
Oof.
and he said no.
Well,
That's the
yeah.
rumours. I
It,
would
it,
as well.
if Ferrari told me, "Hey, here's a 1 year contract after a 5 year contract," I'd be like, "Oh, oh, so you
You
don't trust
really
me
don't like
anymore?
me, yeah,
You don't trust me anymore? Got it. I will start looking at Red Bull because
or Audi.
room like if or Audi, a lot of well, you say Audi, but it's really the remnant of Alfa
Sauber.
Romeo. So
Well, Sauber.
you're at Ferrari and then you're going to Sauber. You're at Ferrari, you're going to
Yeah.
Audi. Now, Audi might be able to change things around. I'm not saying they can, but do you really want to be that guy? Because that's essentially a Bottas to Alfa Romeo leap. You're not going to do
Well,
better. That's it.
the
Your career's on a downward trajectory.
the thing is, are Audi going to come up with an engine which is good?
No,
And
they're German. It's not. I wouldn't be too
I
surprised if they can pull it off.
I repeat myself. Are Audi going to come up with the engine that's good? I don't believe in the Teutonic master race. I believe they do good engineering, but personally, I think Honda does a little bit better. And you talk about Mercedes. Oh, it's a Mercedes engine. It's the old Ilmor people. So that's British engineers. They've got, yeah, they put AMG on it. I know. But it's designed and built in Britain. It's not really, it's just Mercedes money, in my opinion. Audi, this is a new branch for them. Now, if they poach engine engine designers from other fields, maybe they'll get there. It's a big jump. Maybe Porsche can help them because it is the same group after all. But
We'll have to see.
hopefully,
We can't predict.
hopefully, hopefully they'll be there. But next season, this season, coming season,
It's a
I
lot of driver shakeup. A lot
yeah,
of driver shakeup coming our way, which should be fun. That keeps the sport exciting.
yeah, and we can do more of this.
All right, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's our first episode. We just talked about everything from the off season, about an hour and a half. For everyone that watched the whole thing, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll be back. Obviously, we're gonna do this every Wednesday, and then I'll have to edit things. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Dad, anything?
and let's say just give us a thumbs up and subscribe from below.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Cool.
So you can stop the recording now.
Stopping the recording now.